I'm Matt.
I'm Shane, and you are about to listen to an excerpt from a Comic Movie Marks podcast.
So if you like what you hear, make sure you hit that like button real hard, and make sure you subscribe to Comic Movie Marks. And always remember,
If Trailer Trash can do it,
anyone can do it. So next we have Captain America Civil War, release date May 6, 2016, directed by the Russo brothers, $250 million budget, made $1.132, something like that, billion dollars. That's a
something
joke.
like that. It's just $1 billion.
That's just a joke from Top Gear, never mind. They were making fun of something. Anyway, we have what would this have been? 13th installment in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Because Doctor Strange was the 14th.
Was okay.
Yeah, I remember that.
Nice. There you go. Work backwards.
Yeah.
Carry the one.
So it's the 13th installment in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. We have pretty much, 3/4 of the Avengers here.
No Thor, no Captain America, or no Hulk.
No Hulk, yeah. And that's about it. So, we'll let Nick go first.
Of course. So, get your paper out too. It is no secret that I do enjoy Marvel. I grew up with Marvel. Don't get me wrong, I do love DC as well, but I'm definitely more focused on Marvel. I loved Civil War. I think that Civil War is the sequel to the Avengers that we really needed that we didn't get with Age of Ultron. I think Age of Ultron had a lot of flaws in it that kind of prevented it from feeling as big or as important as the first Avengers did. And so when Captain America Civil War came out, I really see that as the sequel to Avengers. I don't see necessarily Age of Ultron as it didn't work as well. I love Captain America. I think that he's my favorite character in the Avengers Cinematic Universe. And I think that them continuing his story along with Bucky, kind of growing on Winter Soldier, which I would personally still say is the best of the Marvel movies, adding onto that storyline, and then giving everyone kind of a little bit of breathing room to kind of have a tiny bit of development, but not so much that takes away from the Captain America centric story. I think that the humor is great. I think that the Ant-Man scenes are just hysterical. Just the little parts that he's there. Mm-hmm. I think that
and Spider-Man,
probably my favorite Spider-Man. I would say Tobey Maguire is still my favorite Spider-Man overall, but just like that brief period of the way that he fights and the way that he jokes and he's the little kid, the teenager, I think that was a really, really well done. Even though, yes, I know you're going to bring it up, he totally was shoehorned in. Mm-hmm. I'm not even going to deny that. Yes, he was in there for the sake of let's get the rights back so that we can actually start doing his movies right, as opposed to the Andrew Garfield terrible ones.
Can we agree that Black Panther was also shoehorned in?
Yeah, to a degree. Yeah, but I can give you that one. But I do think that the thing that really works with me that I think doesn't work with Batman Superman is that this is something that's been developing in the background for the last 8 years. Mm-hmm. Like I can see, at least specifically with Iron Man and Captain America, this developing over time. I mean, you see little bits of it in the first Avengers movie, right? Put the suit on, right? Let's go a few rounds, right? Them kind of butting heads a little bit. And then the butting heads even more, in Age of Ultron, and kind of just these things adding, coming to this culmination. Mm-hmm. I think that the action in this movie really, really, and again, I don't want to rag on Batman Superman as much, but it really shows how good action scenes can be composed because of the speed, because of the editing, because of the ability for multiple characters to be present at once and actually have their own impact, whereas other movies might not have that.
X-Men.
Absolutely, yes.
X-Men's a better comparison.
X-Men.
They had the same amount of people but could not execute that at all.
Hell no.
We'll get to that.
Yeah, which we totally will. No, the airport scene. I think that's one of the greatest fight scenes ever put on film. I will put my stamp on that right there.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that agree with you.
That scene with Giant Man, with
Spider-Man,
absolutely, with Captain America and Iron Man fighting each other, with War Machine, there's just so much going on that it felt like a splash page from a comic book. Like that when you open the middle of a comic book and you have that thing where they're facing off against each other, I'm like, that is the thing that I've been waiting for a very long time to be seen on the big screen. Because that is the stuff that when you buy like the Civil War comics, obviously they don't have 90 characters they can throw in there like they do in the comics, but
I'm gonna bring that up.
yeah, which I would love to. But I really liked the structure of the film. I think that, yes, I will be 100% honest, Zemo was not developed. Like his story and the plan. I mean, I would almost relate that to kind of the convoluted plan of Luthor in that sense too. It's just like, okay, we're gonna convince these people to do these things, to do these things. So it's like it definitely caused a lot of issues in that sense. But I think just overall, it felt much more cohesive. It felt fun, which I think is the big thing that was also lacking in a lot of these other movies this year. You know, that's something that I don't see in a lot of the other movies. You know, I had a good time with this film. The color palette was beautiful. Like there were fights in the sun. Okay, there were fights like during the day. You know, it's like, oh, that can actually happen. It doesn't have to always be like dark and raining and with thunderclouds. And it's like, oh, we can have a really good fight scene in the middle of the day.
Yeah.
Batman doesn't look good during the day.
He doesn't come. I know he doesn't come out, and that's why Gotham's all shitty, is because he doesn't come out during the day. If he worked a 9 to 5, there wouldn't be any problems. Okay. So overall, like I mean, like I won't go into too much detail because I know you guys have some stuff you want to say as well. But like overall, I loved Civil War. Like I thought that, like I walked out of that movie pumped. Like I walked out of that movie saying that was fun. That was energizing. Yeah, I know the reasoning behind a lot of that can be kind of icky and not so great. And you sent me that text jokingly of, you know, Hawkeye and Black Widow kind of jokingly, are we still friends? Well, it depends on how hard you hit me. Like that's kind of the quirky humor there, but I could totally see that if being a problem and a fundamental thing. But realistically, Captain America and Iron Man, this has been building. This has been building. And I think ideologically they are very different people. You know, Iron Man kind of does what he wants until it's not good for him. You know, he kind of is, I wouldn't say a flake per se in his values, but he'll do whatever can to get what he wants. And Captain America is that stalwart, classic, you do the right thing all the time, regardless of whether someone else wants you to do it or not. And so that I really liked. And so that seemed much more of an ideological clash than I think the other film did. And I you know, overall, I think it was really fun. So, all right, I'll let you guys yell at me now.
No yelling. You want to go or you want me to go?
I can go.
Okay, go.
Yeah. So I guess to preface this a little bit, yes, I am a huge DC fan, but I absolutely love what Marvel has done, and also what Marvel has forced, mainly Disney, what Disney has forced Warner Brothers to do.
That first Iron Man movie was better.
Yeah, that's true.
And it wasn't Disney.
Yeah, that's very true. So yeah, I guess Marvel in general, their plan, what they have forced Warner Brothers to do, because Warner Brothers has planned for years. There was like a Justice League that was supposed to come out in like 2004. There was Batman vs Superman in 2001 by the same guy who did I Am Legend. Damn.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So there was supposed to be a Batman vs Superman. They were working on a script. Anyways.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that's right.
Stuff like that. So, but what Marvel has forced, I absolutely love. I like a lot of aspects of what Marvel has done up to this point. Like you said, the 13th installment. That's insane. An insanely amount of movies to put into one universe, and that's so awesome for comic book fans.
In a fairly short amount of time.
Yeah.
2008 was Iron Man.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
8 years and you got 13 films.
Yeah, that's awesome. They've done,
and for the most part, most of them are really good.
Yeah. They've this year, I was kind of let down with Marvel, and the reason being is I felt so built up and so pumped for their two movies, for Doctor Strange and even for Civil War. Because I like, as much as I love DC, I'm gonna be frank, I wouldn't give Marvel a 1.
Take the dagger out of your heart that Superman threw in there, and you'll be okay.
But I just felt, starting with this movie, I took the time to read the Civil War graphic novel, and absolutely loved it.
Mhm.
I actually think up until this point, you've done a great job at explaining, or you just did a great job at explaining where Captain America is supposed to lie. And because I always felt when I read the graphic novel, I thought Captain America should have been on the opposite side, because he's a soldier. He's supposed to go along with what he's told to do, and Tony Stark is kind of the private side of like, no, you're not going to tell me what to do because I'm fucking Iron Man. So that's kind of how I felt, even reading the graphic novel. But after reading the graphic novel, I knew there wasn't going to be that many superheroes.
No.
That
would have been awesome, but no.
Yeah, exactly. But I was still pumped for it. I was still like, okay, this is gonna be awesome. We're gonna have Black Panther, Spider-Man. We all knew was gonna be in it. But there was so many parts that I felt let down, and I feel to this point in 13 movies that as different as this one was, and I liked that, I felt it was still the same. Mm-hmm. And as different, meaning that they actually do kind of delve a little bit deeper into, I know Iron Man 3 tried with PTSD and stuff, but Zemo, I would agree, is a character that probably shouldn't have been in there. There's no reason to have him pull the strings. But when it got to the end and he talked about why he was doing what he was doing, I loved that. I loved that, the emotion that was coming out of that, and I was almost rooting for him at that point. And I can absolutely see what he was trying to do, and I could relate to him. But as far as the parts with how formulaic it's being, I thought a lot of the humor, other than Ant-Man and Spider-Man, was very cringeworthy, and it just took so much out of the. It took me out of the movie so many times, and the same thing with Doctor Strange, where I felt like, man, if you're gonna try to do something different, do something different. I noted down an article that I read a long time ago, but the Russo brothers, they were the ones who forced Disney, I guess, ultimately to want to do something different. And their exact quote was, if you give someone chocolate ice cream 5 days a week, they're going to get bored with it. Mm-hmm. And I love that they saw, and it was all based on Batman versus Superman. They saw what Warner Brothers was going to do. They said, we have to do something different. And I thought the effort was there. I liked where they were going with it, but I felt ultimately it just kind of fell short, and you still had the cheesy jokes and which is, it's fine. It works in some capacity, but it also just takes so much emotion that I'm trying to connect with out of it. Mm-hmm. For me, and I guess I have to go back and watch The Winter Soldier again, but I do not like the character of Bucky. I do not. In this movie, it just doesn't, it almost forces Captain America to side, instead of the way that you
with
put
stupidity?
it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
His heart.
No, well, but okay, so
like I said, stupidity.
I'm gonna bring up that as far as like, the Martha scene that's completely crapped all over. People don't bring up the Bucky part at the very beginning of the movie that causes the explosion, and that's ultimately the same thing. Is that he stopped arresting what's his name, Crossbones?
Yeah, Crossbones. Yeah.
He stopped from apprehending him because he said the word Bucky.
He knew you. Hey, pal, your buddy, your Bucky. What did you say? He remembered you. I was there. He got all weepy about it. Till they put his brain back in a blender.
And he even tells Wanda later, I'm sorry, I paused. I didn't know what to do.
He said Bucky, and I went back to being a kid in Brooklyn.
Yeah, and which I can see, but as the movie progresses, it's like every decision he's making. There's the police department when they're in whatever fucking country it was at the time, and it's in, I think, Bucky's apartment or something.
Yeah.
And
Germany. They're in Germany.
Okay, thank you. In Germany, and he's basically,
I just remember the cops with the symbols on them.
Yeah, and he's basically just whooping their ass, and a lot of,
with his Darth Vader hand.
Yeah,
that's a cool hand.
And Captain America is like along with it, even though at that point in the movie, Bucky, from what they've shown, he's the one who has caused a lot of it. Yeah. So it was so hard for me. I don't like that character, and I do want to go back and watch The Winter Soldier again, because when I left it wasn't. I've only seen it once, and it wasn't the movie of like, oh my gosh, that you make it out to be. So I'm intrigued to go to watch it again. But there's just so many parts where I was hoping to get more emotional connection and feel the same feeling of how you describe it, of like, oh my gosh, we get to see these characters on screen. I felt was such a letdown. The airport scene, I will give you I give you credit that it was shot very well, and they do a great job at bouncing back and forth. But as far as, that picture that I sent you, it was almost pointless. If you're not going to have a battle, and that's what the graphic novel felt like, is a battle of ideologies. This was almost like, I guess I'm on this side, Timmy, and we're going to pull back a little bit, and it just didn't feel as epic. And I wish I had that same feeling that you, and there's a ton of people online that have said the same exact thing. That's the best action sequence ever. And I wish I had that feeling, but there was so much that just pulled me out of it. The best parts for me were Ant-Man and Spider-Man. And I love that. There's a lot of plot holes in that same part, that as far as where Vision, he shoots down Rhodey, but can't fly to go save him. He also knocks down the tower, but he can't stop the two guys or fly over there to stop Captain America. And
Vision's presence in that whole thing is kind of like he's a god,
right?
What's going on?
Yeah, so there was those certain things that just kind of took me out of the movie and made it. I wanted so much more. Same thing with Doctor Strange, which we'll get to, but I wanted so much more and just couldn't get there with it. So, but there was a lot that I liked about it, and I do laugh at that they can fight in sunlight, and it does look great.
Yeah, you actually can see who's fighting.
Yeah. So
for me, I actually just like good movies in general. I'm not really DC or Marvel. I like either one. I don't care. The movie just has to be good. The funny thing is, when you're talking about the previous movies, and you like that setup that they've had for all this, I actually feel like that's what kills this movie for me, is all these previous movies, because you've had all these previous personalities and all these other things that happened, and now they're in this movie. I will never get over when Ant-Man first shows up. He's like, you're going to be a wanted after this. Oh, well. Your whole fucking movie was about being out of prison and being with your daughter the whole time.
Okay.
That was the whole point of it. Fucking Hawkeye wanted to retire and be with his family. No, fuck it. I'm here. And it was just, Spider-Man was pulled out of their ass to be there. I understand. Yeah, we said he was shoehorned. Just to build up these teams. And so you have these previous movies that I think actually just hinder this movie, hinder what's going on. You can believe the fight between Iron Man and Captain America, but that's it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Everybody else in this movie is useless. Falcon, Bucky, that whole thing is just, I just don't like what they did with them. The other movies just kill that. They just kill that for me. The airport scene was cool. Like Shane said, the only parts that I really loved were the Ant-Man and Spider-Man parts. Vision was definitely too OP to show. They couldn't have him do anything unique. Wanda was just in there to stop people from hitting people. She would stop them, throw them over, and that's it. Both those two could have wrecked that shit and ended that story like that. And they didn't. But they have to have Rhodey and Iron Man flying around getting hit by arrows and shit like that. They made this scene. That airport scene almost could have been cut out for me, if you want. Yeah. I mean, it could have been cut out for me that would have made that final fight so much better.
Yeah, exactly. The final fight was phenomenal. I love that. I actually felt the emotion once you get to the emotion of like Tony Stark and oh man, the shot really well.
Yeah, and the previous movies, the whole premise of this is because they felt that these superheroes were too dangerous.
But while a great many people see you as heroes, there are some who would prefer the word vigilantes.
And what word would you use, Mr. Secretary?
How about dangerous? What would you call a group of U.S.-based, enhanced individuals? For the past 4 years, you've operated with unlimited power and no supervision. The Sokovia Accords, approved by 117 countries, it states that the Avengers shall no longer be a private organization. Instead, they'll operate under the supervision of a United Nations panel only when and if that panel deems it necessary. Compromise, reassurance. That's how the world works. Believe me, this is the middle ground.
For society, that they were bringing things down.
Yeah, the Sokovia Accords, yeah.
And General Thunderbolt Ross has this whole little thing, and I wrote him down because this was in our first episode, which is terrible. Nobody listened to, so you wouldn't.
Please
do
don't.
Yeah,
We're not plugging that.
but as he's talking about this, they have the casualties and the cost of damages. In New York, 74 casualties. DC 23. Sokovia 177. Total deaths in 3 movies. 274 casualties. I made this joke then, I'll make it now. But Man of Steel would kill for those type of numbers. Would kill because
he literally kills.
Yes, because Ben Affleck even says thousands died in Metropolis.
Oh yeah,
thousands. 274, and the government feels they need to rein in these guys.
Yeah,
casualties, which doesn't even necessarily mean deaths. Yeah. It means death or injured. 274. The motherfucking government was going to nuke the goddamn city of New York in the first Avengers. They were going to wipe out a huge population with a nuke. But yet they want to rein in. You need to be under control. You have let 274 people hurt or die.
I will say
that fucking city came down as a rock and blew up. 177 people got casualties.
I will say I do like that. There's a line that Thunderbolt Ross says when he's talking about the when he's introducing the Accords to the table of people, and he says, "Do you know where Banner and Thor are right now?" And they're kind of not. It's like, do you think that if I lost 2 nuclear warheads, that I wouldn't have been in trouble right now?
Yeah, that is great.
And so I so to kind of link with that is like I can see the
if a nuclear warhead only did 74 deaths,
that would be a success.
One, that's a very shitty nuke.
little dirty bomb, you know.
That's a fucking firecracker going wrong. Okay. I just, that whole premise, this whole thing was structured under, I think, complete stupidity. All Captain America had to say was just like, are you fucking kidding me? That's it? Like, a whole city was launched in the fucking air, and that's all that happened.
Yeah, to their credit, they did a fantastic job.
And,
like, that's
and 20,
saving people.
Yeah, exactly.
Unlike other movies we could talk about.
Yeah,
we did.
Totally. They did a way better job, and they showed it. And I love the 23 casualties in DC, which I'm like, what the fuck? They had Hydra and S.H.I.E.L.D. just gunning each other down. So only 23 people were killed or injured in that? Holy shit. Like, that's amazing.
It just shows that they value life more in this series than they do in the other ones.
Sort of. Their numbers do, the looks don't.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I'm sorry, they number that, but if you watch the first Avengers,
they kill.
They're wrecking the shit out of it. But that's what the numbers they put. I mean, the damage is astronomical. It's like billions and billions,
hundreds of trillions of dollars.
I think that's what it's about. We need to rein you in, not because of people, like we're gonna make it seem, with the lady at the elevator and stuff like that. It's because of money. You're costing us a lot.
Oh my god, insurance rates have gone up so high.
Oh yeah, I actually wrote it down. The money in to rebuild, or the cost of Sokovia was $474 billion they had on that thing.
Pretty sure that's higher than.
And I was like, it's Sokovia. It's like a third world thing. What, they destroy a couple mud huts and like fucking. Wow. Yeah, so that whole premise just killed me. Like, they show it. They even show it in the movie. It's not like you're just living off the idea like that was a lot of destruction. Yeah, you do need to be reined in. No, they put numbers. They put figures to this. And it just blew me away that no one ever just pointed out, like, no, we saved a lot of people. A lot of people. The third one, fucking Sokovia, we saved the world.
Yep.
All right.
Well, I think that's Iron Man, or that's Captain America's point, though. His main story arc.
Yeah, but I mean, come on, man, it's beyond absurdity at this point. Like, 274 people. I don't care if some random black woman comes up to you and says you killed my kid. Like, that's one. All right, that's just I don't know. Maybe because I'm a military family. Death happens. I'm sorry, death happens, and just let one death fucking control your whole life, I think is ridiculous. To pretty much tell you that you need to be under control because one person pointed it out to you that someone died.
Well, I think you said it perfectly right there. Captain America is military. That is his thing. He is like, you do the right thing regardless.
But he never says that.
Yes, he does.
Well, I mean, he never expresses. I just would have liked to say, really? And then flip the screen off something like you can't sit there. No, he says when the screen's showing all of it and like, Wanda's getting sad because Sokovia's blowing up. he's like, oh, just shut it off. And he just feels like, well, what I got from it was that they didn't want to be controlled. Who says we do what? When do we go in? What happens if it's too late? Yeah. That's what he's saying. He never brings up he does say for a moment that we saved a lot of people, but then he's like, a lot of people are scared. And I think Ross's retort was something about a lot of people are scared though. And and then he brings up the Hulk and Thor part about the nuclear weapon. Right. And so it just seemed like to me that should have been the pressing matter. I don't know, 274? Right. There's more deaths in the road in Nevada. Yeah. If you've seen the sign, it's like 299 or something like that. Deaths on the road.
We didn't win that zero fatalities this year.
No, not even close. And it's just like, compared to what happened, those numbers blew me away. I was watching that. I focused specifically on that because I was like, because they're obviously doing a lot of comparisons here to the destruction in like Man of Steel and their destruction. And I specifically focused on those numbers. Yeah. And I was watching it when we were at home, when we were at my house watching it. And I was like, wow. That totally took me out of the movie from there. There's one thing that I showed Shane and I want to tell Nick. I'm ready. I wrote down some things. And this is my other issue with this movie. Not necessarily an issue, but something I want to point out for the people that maybe disliked Batman, Superman.
Like, give it a 1.
Man, you were really harping on that.
And like Civil War, like, give it a 5.
Now I see a tattoo like a 1 on my shoulder, just to be like, oh, I'm sorry, what? Yeah.
With the That'd be great. It's got like an upside down Superman symbol. 1. That'd be fantastic. So this is something I wanted to point out. And I said this in our Batman, Superman, Civil War comparison and everything. You know, you see this a lot. When I was younger, like you got Dante's Peak and Volcano. You know, you get
Armageddon, Deep Impact.
Yes, you get a lot of movies that, because writers, I think they all have the same system. They do. They get plot points from the studios. You follow those, make a story around that shit. And I wrote these down, and this is just something I want to point out. Man, I should have made this font bigger. Movie opens with billionaire parents being murdered. American icon in blue fights with terrorists in Africa. The government doesn't like what the American icon in blue did in Africa. Billionaire playboy is upset about the brutal death of his parents. Lame villain has an overcomplicated and convoluted plan to get icon in blue and billionaire to fight. Continuous dialogue about destruction in the previous movies and are superheroes good for society? We are introduced to royalty from a hidden society. Man injured by American icon in blue blows up. Important.
Wait, hold on. Who blows up? I'm trying to think.
Wallace Keefe in
Batman
Superman and Crossbones blows himself up.
You're right.
Man injured. Oh, I already said that. Okay. Important government building blows up.
Yep.
American icon in blue needs a pep talk about doing the right thing. Lame villain plan actually works, and American icon in blue fights with billionaire playboy in a metal suit. Persistent dialogue about the area is clear and there's no casualties. Billionaire lets dead parents influence the fight. Final scene, or one of the points in the final scene, there is a prison scene.
Yeah.
Which movie is this?
Ding 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 ding. No, I
ping. No, it's actually ding ding ding.
Steppenwolf's coming. Let's get some music going.
Yeah.
And something else I wanted to point out. We had characters from previous franchise that were in multiple movies in different franchise, Spider-Man and Batman, be put into these movies. We had generals from previous movies now become important figures in this movie. We had the general from Man of Steel.
Swanwick.
Yep. And then we had Thunderbolt Ross become Secretary of this.
Let's just remember.
Hold on.
Okay.
One more.
Okay.
We have useless female characters, Sharon Carter and Lois Lane, moving the story along with stupid fucking things.
Hold on. Slow clap. Genuine slow clap. That's I will say that. Well, originally, Civil War and Batman Superman were supposed to come out on the same day, weren't they?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And that would have been
insane.
That would have been hysterical.
Were things done differently ultimately when you talk about dialogue and how the movie was structured and paced? Yes.
Absolutely.
But ultimately, it's like they got that list, make a movie around it. And it was just,
here's your checklist.
Yeah.
And it just makes me think they're the same fucking movie.
Yeah.
One is in day, one is at night.
Exactly.
One is good and one is bad.
Maybe.
1.0.
Hashtag one.
That's why I'm so just like shocked at mine, are at least the one for me comes in the difference of score, not in like the complete broad. How low can I give this movie? How high can I give this movie? So, and that's exactly what it comes off of. I'm like, they're the same damn movies. And I even brought up the Martha scene and the Bucky scene. Like,
I didn't even think of that, honestly. I didn't even think of that.
it's the same shit.
Why did you say Bucky's name?
And it just, but so, I still enjoyed Civil War. I did.
Yeah,
I
did
did
too.
enjoy Civil War. I wish they would have dug a little deeper and they didn't have so many useless characters in it.
Yeah.
But, there's also arguments to have for Batman versus Superman. So, ultimately, I think we'll just go right into it. Unless anybody else has got to do it. I'm going to give my score for Captain America Civil War, the theatrical cut, because I think that's the only cut there is.
Yeah.
You don't need to have an ultimate cut, but it's good.
It's a... Yeah, actually, when they talked about that one, it was pretty crazy. They barely had any extra scenes. Like, that was just straight up what their movie was going to be.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, Warner Brothers shit.
Refreshing.
Envy. Because they make 15 different movies and try to cut it together.
Yeah, and emulate that same thing.
I think that definitely did show they had a much clearer path with Civil War.
They had a vision and they stuck to it.
Yeah, and a better understanding of what they wanted to do. So I give Captain America Civil War a 3 out of 5 marks.
Okay.
All right. So I basically kind of let the cat out of the bag. But for me, I gave it a 3.1, which was 1 point less than Batman versus Superman. And I think a lot of it comes down to... not 0.1, 1 point.
Yeah.
I think a lot of it, I did enjoy this movie. I enjoyed a lot of aspects of it. It just doesn't, I've seen it now a couple times and it's not holding as much water for me. And to go back to our original scores of, please don't listen or watch that YouTube video, but I gave a 8.8 and a 8.1. Or I'm sorry, 8.8 and 8.4 on my original scores between the two movies. And then as I kind of watched each of them over and over again, Civil War just was not holding as much water as I had felt after leaving it the first time. So, yeah.
Well, real quick, I know for Batman versus Superman, for me, that movie was up and down. I remember first time I saw it, liked it. Second time I saw it, hated it.
Yeah.
Third time I saw it, and then watching the extended cut, I kind of went back to a little bit above me.
Yeah.
So
Above me.
so when you keep watching a movie over again, I watched Civil War probably 3 or 4 times. I've watched Batman vs Superman about like 6 times probably. Deadpool about 100 times. So yeah, no, I still liked Captain America Civil War.
Yeah,
I still liked that concept. I just didn't like how the story was put forward.
Yeah.
And I didn't like the ultimate solution to the airport scene. I felt was just lost. I think they needed a big action piece, and they got as many people as they could in there. I think they should have found a way to get rid of Vision and Wanda, and it would have made it a little bit better, a little bit more realistic, I felt, because those two characters are just hiding, and out of those two characters, they could just crush everybody.
Yeah.
And she can crush Vision.
Right.
And he's an Infinity Stone, so.
Yeah. And so I just feel like those two should have somehow been, I don't know, dispatched somewhere else, or
like Hulk and Thor.
Yeah, maybe just not be even in the movie, but then you wouldn't have that cool Mr. Rogers sweater that he has.
That's I love he walks through the wall. It's like, Viz, what are you doing? I thought the door was open. I thought it was okay to do this.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I still like the movie.
Yeah, it was a good movie.
3 out of 5 marks. I think is a good score.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I think of the superhero movies that came out this year. I was really debating whether this or Deadpool was better. And I think I just personally, just from what I've watched recently again, I got to think that Captain America is going to be better than that. And so I gave it probably a 4.5. I think this is going to be one of those right up there with Winter Soldier and Guardians of the Galaxy of the Marvel Cinematic Universe that are really going to, I think, hold the test of time. And
have you watched Guardians of the Galaxy again?
I have. It's fantastic.
Oh, it started deflating for me. I'm like, I can't watch this anymore. Yeah.
Have you seen it? The trailer came out like 2 or 3 days ago.
The second one, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that does look great.
But anybody have tape?
They're gonna make so much money off of Baby Groot dolls.
Oh,
yeah.
I'm probably already pre-order one anyway, so it's all good.
Dude, and all the different clothes that he's, my God, they are gonna make
mountains.
I can't eat whatever Frozen, because I remember Frozen was always like they would sell out of toys as soon as they hit the shelf.
Baby Groot's gonna be gone.
Baby Groot is it's probably gonna make Disney own a country.
They already own an island technically. Aulani. It's their Hawaiian thing.
Talking about things that Disney does better than Warner Brothers, that would definitely be one of them, because they can marketing and figuring out a way to have a movie. It's one of my flaws with Disney / Marvel ultimately, but they can figure out how to have a movie and make a shit ton of money off of it.
Oh my god!
Like kids who are dressing up as Captain America and Iron Man, anytime, or Thor or whoever, anytime that Warner Brothers tries to do that, it works on the kids side, but not on the film side. Yeah. So they can't find that balance, and Disney just knocks it out of the park every time.
Yeah. So I'd say 4.5 for Civil War. So
all right.
I thought my thing would knock it down for him.
No, you bring up very good points. Seriously, like I think you bring up very, very good points.
Yeah, no.
And I do see the similarities between those two films, and I think one executed it much better than the other did, though. So
I think it's
again. Armageddon to Deep Impact. Okay,
Yeah.
Dante's Inferno, I
will agree.
Armageddon is way better.
You get Aerosmith in there, and
Hell yeah,
little animal crackers on Liv Tyler. It's perfect.
Fantastic. Best Ben Affleck movie ever.
Whoa. Have you seen Daredevil?
Yes.
Oh man.
Congratulations, you made it to the end of the video. You're one of very few to make it to the end.
Yes, thank you very much.
Make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to Comic Movie Marks Podcast and hit the notification bell. You know, all these fucking YouTube channels say this shit, so I'm going to say it now.
Yes, it's perfect. And if you want to hear our full podcast, you can check out our podcast on iTunes or any other podcast subscription service.
Make sure you subscribe. Thanks again.